This is E&P Reports, a service of Editor and Publisher magazine. Since 1884, the authoritative voice of news publishing. And brought to you this week by Adams Print Solutions, who invites you to check and select. Check your current commercial print pricing by getting a quote from Adams, then select them as your new commercial printer. Adams Print Solutions provides cost-effective, reliable printing, ad design, pagination, fulfillment, mailing, and more from 17 production sites across the U.S. Request a quote today and get 10% off your first 3 months of new service. Adams Print Solutions, apgprint.com, or call them 608-755-9473. And hello once again, Mike Blinder, publisher of E&P Magazine. And when Francis Wick at Wick Communications let the team at the Half Moon Bay Review, a weekly newspaper, circulation 3,000, south of San Francisco, across the California coast on Route 1, when you let the team know that Wick was going to sell that property, the local team got to work. Well, the editor himself, by talking to local investors in Half Moon Bay to help support the newspaper and purchase it. And they did. And that was just 3 years ago. Thus, the creation of the Coastside News Group. And just recently, they expanded to the neighboring weekly, the Pacifica Tribune. So now, local entrepreneurs are in ownership of 2 local newspapers that are actually profitable. It's an amazing story, possibly the future of local journalism on another level. So let's learn more about it as I take you to the California coastline, as we speak to the management of the Coastside News Group, Debra Hershon, the publisher, and Clay Lambert, editorial director. Well, Clay, Debra, welcome to E&P Reports. Thank you so much for your valuable time. I'll tell you one thing, you guys are located one of the prettiest parts of the world. You're over there. What do you call that area south of San Francisco on the water? Is there a name for that whole region in that part of California, or is it all just broken up into different communities?
San Mateo County coastline, maybe.
Okay, cool. And this is a very interesting story because we're discussing how a newspaper, let's go back to 2017. Let's go back in time if we can. Now, Deb, were you part of the Half Moon Bay back in 2017 or not?
No, I was part of the Half Moon Bay Review from like in the early 90s through about 2011. And just recently came back just like 6 weeks ago. So
you are now the publisher of the of the paper. Clay, you were there during the transition. So Clay, you were with Wick Communications, correct? And you found out in 2017 that the company was going to sell this profitable newspaper. Am I right? This was a good performer in the company. Can you kind of quickly tell us the story?
Yeah, that's true. You'd have to ask Francis Wick and others why they decided to sell us, but I think it's safe to say we were the only property they had in California, and the expense of doing business in California is well known, and didn't have any kind of like hub advantage for them. So he called us up one day and told us that he was going to put us on the market, and it became clear pretty quickly that the only interest was equity capital kind of interest. It really didn't care about journalism.
But that was back in 2017. That was the major consolidation going on. So that must have scared the living heck out of you, right? That you would be gobbled up by a larger company.
Well, yes, and not just a larger company, but a company that didn't care about what we did. I mean, they were interested in the market that they would be buying. They didn't care about the kinds of things that I've always cared about.
And at the time, you were managing editor for that publication, correct? And you also had a management position at Wick as well?
Yeah, whatever you want to call me. I was the only editor, and then I was the editorial director for Wick Communications.
Excellent. So a germ of an idea came to you, or the way I studied it, Francis actually said, why don't you guys go find someone local that may want to pick this thing up? Is that kind of how the story went?
Yes, Francis does deserve credit for that. he also was thinking about, nonprofit. These are all sort of management things that I've just never thought about before. And I didn't think that I knew of anyone who had the wherewithal and would understand the value proposition of a local newspaper. So I did talk to a couple other people in the Bay Area, like not Half Moon Bay, but people who are in the publishing industry, to see if they would be interested. And it didn't pencil out for them. So I just started having some conversations around town with people that I knew. I'd been here for 15 years or so at that point, and people that I knew would understand the importance of a community newspaper and also might have some money. And I talked to 5 people, and all 5 of them bought in eventually. Lenny Mendonça was really important in that. He's well known here locally and very well-respected businessman. And I think he added a lot of gravitas to the idea once he threw in his hat. We thought about forming as a nonprofit, and he just sort of had this revelation, as he does, which said, well, you're making a profit, so why would you want to go nonprofit? And then the other thing about the nonprofit was I was really interested in continuing to be able to comment on political things and do endorsements. And it was my understanding anyway that would curtail our ability to do that. And so the Coastside News Group was born. And we had some really great sort of foundational meetings where everyone understood what they were doing. The fear was we didn't want a little mini William Randolph Hearst who was in it for the wrong reasons or had some agenda. It was just clear that we formed the right people who weren't interested in that.
So basically,
that was 2017, and we became a very, very miniature cause celeb around here, and people, we got a lot of good feedback from our readers and from the industry. And that probably led us to Pacifica.
That's amazing. So basically, through your connections in the community, you learned and knew that the local business leaders saw value in having the newspaper there. It wasn't all dollars and cents. It was they knew the value of the paper, and they wanted to help support the community by keeping the paper alive. So kudos to you for reaching out to them. This model you put together, before we move forward to how you've just acquired the next masthead, was the Wick Company in favor of this? Did they help this transition come along? Were there brokers involved?
They were certainly supportive for sure. And for a period of a year and really continuing until recently, we were tethered to them in some ways. They were helpful. They may have even been able to sell it for a higher premium if they would have, done whatever they could do with it. They wanted it to be in the right hands, and Francis particularly deserves a lot of credit for that.
So there we are, 2017, the Half Moon Bay Review. Once again, this is a weekly, correct, Clay?
Yes.
3,000 circulation, approximately 3,000. You print 3,000, mail 2,200, and drop the other 800, correct? Or single copy. Open website or locked down website? Do you pay for access to your content online at the Half Moon Bay?
Yeah, we have a paywall.
You do? Okay, excellent. And before we talk about the acquisition, I want to bring in, obviously, Deb in just a moment. How's it going? I mean, has audience been fragmenting? Has it been growing? I mean, just talk to me about the last 3 years. Now that you have local ownership, you report, I assume, to a board, like a committee. That is the ownership.
Correct. Yeah, we have a now 6-member board.
Okay.
And we have sort of quarterly meetings, and all of that has gone swimmingly. I mean, we don't have any problems with the board. The board's by any indication they've given me anyway, perfectly happy with what we're doing. We anecdotally hear terrific things from the community all the time. It's not true that we're just making money hand over fist and that we've doubled our circulation or anything like that. But I think it is true that people appreciate us sort of doubling down on the community and know we're here to stay. And it frankly sets us apart from other communities in the Bay Area for the most part. So from my perspective as the editor, I think it's going very well. And the board has also made investments into our journalism, I mean, in a variety of ways.
How big is the newsroom today?
Well, let's see. There's 6 of us, I believe.
Excellent.
5 full-time and 1 part-time.
That's amazing. Really good. Now let's bring in Deb. Debra Hershon, you were with this newspaper in a prior life. Your background has always been in journalism, always been in, or I should say in this industry. Mm-hmm. You left and now you're back in working as the publisher, or are you the head of the new Coastside News Group? What is your exact?
No, I'm the publisher of both the Half Moon Bay Review, the Coastside Magazine, and the Pacifica Tribune.
Okay, so recently, in the last few months, you guys picked up another newspaper. Who owned the Pacifica before you picked it up, Deb?
It was Marinscope Newspapers, Battleborn Media, and yeah, I think there were 2 men in Pacifica that sort of felt like they wished that they could have their newspaper back and have it be like the Review, in that it was a community paper. And they were in talks with our board for a long time and ended up kind of agreeing to that there were a lot of things, if we could all be under one roof, using the same publisher, using the same editor, using the same team, that we could actually start making money having that paper as well. So, and they could get their community newspaper back. Which
all right, so Pacifica is right next door to Half Moon Bay, correct?
It's always felt like a completely different community. The 2 communities don't know each other very much, but we had the Devil's Slide Tunnel go through, about 11 years ago, Clay? Maybe longer than that.
So Mike, the reason why they felt different was there was literally a road called Devil's Slide that was on the cliff side over the water, and every 4 or 5 years it would just fall into the water, and it would be 6 months where you just couldn't get between the 2 communities without going an hour and a half around the way. So once the tunnels came through, they just felt closer. They were both in the same county. They were both coastal communities, and it just felt like things were right for that now that wouldn't have been in 1975, say.
And the paper wasn't for sale. The Pacifica wasn't on the chopping block. This was a deal that they came to you and said, can't we kind of merge? Was it more of a merger, or was it a purchase? How did this all come down, Deb?
It was a purchase. And again, this just happened. I was here for 2 weeks when we did it. So I hadn't even completely become ingrained in everything that needed to be done and learned and changed. And yeah, we actually bought it from Battleborn Media, and we've already improved the paper just content-wise. We haven't done much changes yet, but we're just started this week working on a website that works. And there were so many little things, like trying to get their subscriptions moved over, and their website. The domain name is out somewhere that we're still trying to get an attorney to figure out how we get the domain name. And so there's lots of little tiny things that absolutely could have fallen through the cracks, and they didn't. We bought it, and the next week we got the paper out on Wednesday, just like they did the week before. So lots of work to move all the little pieces over. And the major investor lives in Pacifica, and he's just so happy to see the changes that are happening in it. And we feel like we can, like Clay said, it's not making money hand over foot. And certainly it's been a really tough year with COVID for everybody. We're cutting some pages and we're making some cuts in certain places just to get through this COVID period. But yeah, so it was purchased and it's now ours. And the overwhelming response from the people in Pacifica with subscriptions, like 10, 20 phone calls a day, just like, we want to resubscribe. So it's been a really positive thing. It's the thing that out of all the work that Clay and I went through to get the paper moved over, having that automatic, immediate response, it was so positive from the community, made it all worth it. So,
all right, let's compare. Circulation of the Pacifica the day you picked it up was?
A little bit lower. It's about 2,000 with 1,200 mailed and the rest going out in a single copy.
And does it publish the same day of the week as yours? Is it a weekly?
We made that. We did that too. Yeah.
All right. You're obviously running them together on the same press right now, correct?
Yes.
You could get things. And do you have an office in Pacifica? I mean, I assume, Clay, you're in Half Moon Bay, right? Did you shut down the office there and you just travel back and forth?
They didn't have an office in Pacifica when we bought it. It was
originally they did, but
well, they did way back when, correct? Yeah. But when we bought it, they did not. So
did you maintain some of the team when you took it over?
Yes.
So they have to now commute through the tunnel to get to.
Well, they don't. They're covering their own community, so they don't commute to us, and the office is largely shut down-ish
Because of COVID,
only
right?
Essential people are in there at the moment anyway, so their life hasn't changed very much, except that their one staff reporter who now reports to me seems to be thrilled to have other people to work with. And she sort of felt like she was in a vacuum for a time. So,
Deb, do you have separate sales managers for each market? Do you have one sales manager for both? How are you operating sales?
No, we have one sales manager, one salesperson. We talked about adding a person for Pacifica, but I don't know that financially we're there. They had an independent contractor working, and she's ready to retire, and she's going to help us out through the end of the year. But then our staff of 2 salespeople will take it over until we can grow it. I mean, I feel like in talking to her, she said it's a tough sell up in Pacifica. I don't know that we could support make a salesperson happy with that as a territory. So we're going to just do it on our own for a while.
All right. So in other words, we'll describe the 2 communities. Is Pacifica has to have the same amount of potential advertisers that you have in Half Moon Bay? What are the 2 communities?
Yeah, Pacifica is larger, so there should be more advertisers, but I don't think that they spend like our Half Moon Bay advertisers do. So we have fewer and smaller, but they're more willing to spend. So it's not to say, I feel like there's a lot of areas that I feel like real estate is still they haven't been hurting during COVID. So I feel like we could really improve real estate. I feel like we could do some really smart buys where people who are already our advertisers in Half Moon Bay might really enjoy that that additional exposure by being up in that market. So we're going to be trying to do a little bit more of that. The papers we want to remain completely separate with their own identities, with their own brand. So Pacifica is going to be the Pacifica Tribune. Half Moon Bay is going to be the Half Moon Bay Review. We're not going to merge them into the Half Moon Bay Tribune or the Pacifica Review. They're going to still stay that, but where you will see the crossover in advertisers is just with advertisers. And then our Coastside magazine, which is a magazine inserted into the newspaper, into the Half Moon Bay Review once a month. We've made that a crossover piece. So that's kind of a niche publication that has just as much Pacifica stories and advertisers as it does Half Moon Bay. So that one publication being inserted into both issues, suddenly an advertiser in that magazine is getting double the coverage right away, double the exposure right away. So that's going to be good. And then just the fact that we think it'll help people in Pacifica want to see themselves in their newspaper, and people in Half Moon Bay want to see themselves in our newspaper. But this magazine can be that crossover where we in Half Moon Bay start to learn about the Pacifica people and community, and they start to learn about us. So the closest metro to you, when I say metro, I mean larger. I mean, we know San Francisco is huge, and that's north of you. San Jose is to your east, correct? South. Is San Mateo where the larger, if I needed to go to a major hospital, would that be San Mateo? If I needed to get to a major shopping area, would that be San Mateo? Is that your regional hub? It would be for Half Moon Bay, and I think Daly City would be for Pacifica. Pacifica can go, we get to each other on Highway 1 along the coast.
Right.
go directly over from Pacifica. You're in Daly City, go directly over from Half Moon Bay. You're in San Mateo and or pretty close to Palo Alto, Stanford, Silicon Valley.
All right. So how much competition do you have for the local advertiser? Is there any other media that kind of comes in there and sucks at it? So you're an island unto yourselves, basically creating your own advertising. There's no local radio, no television in your face, cable, anything like that.
No television, radio. There is a radio station. It's not a competition in any way.
No.
So.
Okay. So you could actually grow advertising on an ongoing basis.
We could. I would say that with our biggest competition, or why we don't sell more advertising, is social media, Facebook, Nextdoor. They don't sell advertising, but people, why they might not be reading our paper if they're local. And there's a big age thing. Like all of our subscribers are generally on the older side, and we're trying to figure out how we can reach the younger moms in Half Moon Bay and in Pacifica and get them to read the paper too. And I do think a big part of reaching those people is with local sports. And again, you hit a year like this year with COVID, and there's no local sports. So, people picking up a paper and wanting to see their son in Little League, that just hasn't happened this year. So hopefully next spring.
Hopefully will be the chance to cover that. Clay, let's talk about your philosophy when it comes to local news. How much wire copy am I seeing on in your print publications? I mean,
what's wire copy, Mike? We don't have anything like that.
Okay, good.
I take that back. We do utilize some Cal Matters, if you're familiar with them, a nonprofit that covers California-wide stuff. We're a partner with them, and we can use their stuff very sparingly. Nothing on the front page in the Half Moon Bay maybe has ever been anything other than locally produced stuff. I should say too, by virtue of where we are, in some ways we feel like we're in the island of Dr. Moreau all by ourselves over there, but by virtue of our proximity to Cal Berkeley and Stanford and San Francisco, we get a lot of really talented young journalists. And, I think we probably punch above our weight in terms of local journalism, in terms of, like I said, when I was editorial director for Wick, I saw their papers, and I saw what papers were capable of when they didn't necessarily have the kind of talent that we had in our disposal. So we, try to be the LA Times for Half Moon Bay to the best of our ability.
And hyperlocal is the key.
Yeah, absolutely.
And do you break stories online? You're a weekly newspaper, but are you?
Yeah, oh yeah. No, we definitely break stories online every day. We send push alerts to people who sign up for them. We have a newsletter or two. We're posting things on social media all the time.
Too, I think Clay, I don't know if you know this about Clay, but he is known for getting really good reporters in, and really talented reporters in, and training them, and them moving on to some amazing careers. We have one who left the Half Moon Bay Review and it works for the New York Times, and you probably have a lot of stories too.
My word.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get down to this now. This is a very interesting topic, because I hosted for 360 Media Alliance a panel recently with most of the major brokers. So you want to sell your newspaper was the topic of the panel. And it's not uncommon for people right now to be unhappy with their jobs working for these hedge funds, what have you, and have a dream of doing what you did, Clay. Finding a way to get a local community together to be comfortable with the margins that we will be living on for many, many, many years to come. I'm not going to insult you, Deb, by asking your margin. I don't know if you want to tell me. But the good old days of 30%, that we used to see, pre-internet. But even if you're at 5, 8, or 9, Delta would kill for margins like that. So would Walmart. It's a viable business. I'm assuming your investors aren't always screaming at you, Clay and Deb, quick, slash more, let's pull an extra dollar. They're comfortable with a profitable operation. that's in a growth mode. What advice, Clay, would you give to a local editor right now who realizes his paper is underserving the market and feels that maybe they could put a group together? What advice would you give that person?
Well, I mean, first of all, when the Pacifica thing first happened in 2019, a handful of people invited me up there and said, we want to do what you did, you know, and I go, well, is the paper even for sale, you know, and they didn't even know. They hadn't talked to the person. So, I mean, that's kind of the first thing, is having a willing seller who is going to be helpful and not hinder to the process. You definitely don't want, it's not enough to find the richest guy in town and turn it over to him, because that just can create other problems. I mean, it was important to me to find a group of people who could work well together, who weren't interested in a profit. I mean, to me, this is the obvious answer for all newspapers everywhere, is this isn't, you know, it doesn't need to be a suck up your money, but it's not it may be a profitable industry, but that's not the point of it. You know, if you're
also
if
a board that was hands off, right, Clay? Like not
yeah.
a board that had a political axe to grind that would buy the paper.
Finding those people is really important, and that concerned me initially in Pacifica, because I just didn't know those people well enough. But you know, it's not enough to find somebody with money. It's got to be somebody with money who understands that this is a community asset in ways that don't necessarily enrich your bank account, but that make the community a better place in 100 different ways that I'm sure most of your, you know, people who would be watching this are well aware, in terms of, you know, lower taxation rates in communities with good newspapers, and a million different ways that they benefit, you know, the nonprofits and the business community. So that's what you want, is somebody who says, this is something we want for our community, and let's be good stewards of it, not I'll do it if we get 12% margins, you know?
But the industry used to be like that decades ago, did it not? I mean, we had better margins, but we had families that I always say that had ink in their veins. They did it for more than the money. They did it because they had a pride in producing that family masthead.
Well, you're right, but it's also hard to know which came first. It was easy to pretend that was what you were in it for when you had 25% margins and you could get rich as well.
That's true.
Now that that's not the case, you know, it takes a different kind of person, I think.
Do you believe that this could be a model for the future of our industry?
Well, certainly the board does. I mean, they were very clear that they wanted to make this work to show other communities that it could. You know, it's worth noting too that we live in a relatively well-to-do community. I mean, certainly not everybody. We have a wide demographic range, but there were people with the means to do this, and there may be communities in the country where, in fact, I know there are, where this would be a much harder sell to people. But I'd like to think so. I mean, I don't understand why, you know, big cities couldn't figure this out. You know, why there wouldn't be enough capital and enough people who loved Cleveland or Los Angeles or whatever it was to want to do this without worrying about the profit motive.
Deb, you work for that board. You're the publisher. How's it going? Are you comfortable with the people you report to? Are they comfortable with you? How does this?
Yeah, I am. It's still working for somebody. We still Clay and I get a lot on our plates, you know, handed down to us to do this now, kind of thing. But I would say that that the energy is, this is so fun. And I've heard the board say that before. You know, they bought the paper and there was a ton of work that we were doing, and the comments from them was almost like this, and it was like, this is so fun. So when I start to feel bogged down by anything, like, you know, just the amount of work that it's taking to make changes and move things forward and do things, I just remember that is, for all of them, this is fun. You know,
that's wonderful.
Yeah.
All right, are you guys familiar what's going on south of you? Have you ever heard of a town called Santa Cruz? I'm kidding, obviously. Are you familiar with a gentleman by the name of Ken Doctor?
Yes.
So Clay, you got a guy down there now who has got some Facebook money and some other money who's decided on this very platform. I interviewed Ken and he basically said that there was a news desert and it was time to launch a brand new exciting model called Lookout Local. Is that going to be an influence in your market? Are you far enough away that this will not be part of your world?
You know, I don't know. I don't know what Ken wants to do. We're far enough away that we haven't ever competed with Santa Cruz markets before. You know, Ken's obviously an innovative thinker and a leader in the industry. You know, personally, and I should tell him, not you, but you know, I don't think of Santa Cruz as a news desert. I mean, they had a newspaper. They have another startup that I think is largely audio that's run by their former editor of the Santa Cruz newspaper. I would love to see how that kind of investment would work in a news desert that really didn't have any news stuff. But you know, I wish him well. It's going to be great. I mean, they're pumping in a lot of investment, and I can't wait to see what they do.
Excellent. Deb, if anyone would like to learn more about how this all happened, I should ask Deb, are you thinking of expanding a little bit more, or is it too soon to tell, or is there other?
I don't think, you know, my strength is really in marketing, and my kind of goal for the paper would be that there were some other revenue sources. So, you know, I'd like to see some more collaboration packages that are sold between businesses that are doing well, connecting with nonprofits. I'd like to see more events and maybe some money coming in from events, and maybe making sure that the newspaper is out physically after COVID, out physically, you know, doing things in the community. You know, so was that your question?
Well, I was going to say that, are you thinking of expanding and picking up another paper?
I would say not. I don't
know.
No. I think the only reason this works is because the communities are so close, and not that they're similar, but that there's the synergies between them. I can't think of a paper. I mean, could you, Clay? Could you see?
No, I mean, the reason this makes sense is we cover the coastline of a single county. I mean, it's 50 miles, but it's geographically makes sense. You know, what I could see us doing is, I've been talking about it for 3 years and haven't made it happen, but I would love to have some kind of Spanish language journalism, and maybe it's audio, maybe it's text-based. You know, I think there are other products within our geographic boundaries that would be interesting to pursue. Mm-hmm. But there, you know, I mean, who knows if another paper nearby were to come to our board, and who knows where that would lead. But I think we got our hands full for the time being.
All right, so we've got the Coastside News Group. We have the Half Moon Bay Review. And then we have the Pacifica Tribune, the newest acquisition. If anyone wants to get a hold of you guys, I understand you use the Coastside News Group domain name for your email right now. Am I correct? Clay, what is your email address?
It's clay@coastsidnewsgroup.com.
And how about you, Debra?
Debra@coastsidnewsgroup.com.
And you spell it Debra, no H, correct? I'm sure you guys would not mind if anyone was to reach out, ask advice, try to mimic your model in the communities they're at before. And keep an eye on you and see how this, I don't even want to say it's an experiment. I think it's a logical way for a community to support local journalism, for the community to step up to the plate. I'm assuming that through this partnership with local businesses, you're even tighter with the chamber right now. Would I say, Clay? I mean,
Yeah, I do think we're tighter with the chamber, but not necessarily because of anything we did. I mean, there's been changes at the chamber that has made that perhaps a more fruitful relationship. But I do sense, and this is partly because of COVID, but I do sense there is we're all in this together kind of thing going on that is, I'm sure, not unique to us. It's probably happening all over the country and world.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to thank both of you for your valuable time. Debra, Clay, it's been it's amazing story. Congratulations on your growth. And we at E&P would like to check in with you in a little while, maybe a few months, and see how things are going out there. And by the way, wear masks, stay healthy. The industry needs you. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike.